the date today? 13th.
It's Starter for 10.
Hi, my name's Steve Elms. I'm one of the ministers at Bookham Baptist Church, and I'm joined by two really good friends and colleagues, actually, Gill Hawkins and Rob Stevens. So this is the 13th of February, 2022, and this is Starter for 10, which is our a small section of that looks toward our morning service a little bit later on and anticipates some of what we're going to be getting into. We often kick off with a starter question, such to open things up. And Jill, I think you've got one of those for us.
I do. Later on, we're really going to be talking about death, which is joyful. No, we're going to be talking about death and resurrection. And the question that I want to pose to you is, have you ever had anything that you thought was dead come back to life?
Oh, that's a good one. Have you got an idea you can share?
I do, and I was going to bring a kind of horticultural one, but I've changed because I've had a bit of an interesting 24 hours. I didn't do my iOS updates on my Mac. And last night, my Mac decided to gobble up my notes for my talk that were all beautifully prepared last night. Suddenly, the battery ran out. It closed down when I opened it up. The document was entirely gone. And so I then redid them, and it happened again. And I thought, my talk is dead in the water. And then I found, actually, no, my talk was in there. I kind of knew what I wanted to say, and I managed to get it back on.
Okay.
So, yeah, but it felt,
So we're going to see this resurrection later on, aren't we? We're going to witness it. It's going to come. This sermon will
hopefully.
come
What if it doesn't?
come back to life. Fantastic. That sounds really exciting. I've got when you asked that question of me yesterday, what I thought of was not to do with horticulture, but motoring, actually, cars. We have a number of cars in our family, and one of them is a little Getz, Hyundai Getz, and it was literally driven into the ground by our daughter. It got. I know there's a film somewhere where after a really long journey, it might be chitty chitty bang bang, the car just collapses visibly, doesn't it? The whole thing just kind of, and it was not far from that. But we managed to drive this little car to our mechanic, who is a bit of a wonder worker, miracle maker, and he literally brought it back from the dead. And that little car is now driving around very happily, and is actually back with Katrina, who was the one who drove it into the ground, and she's looking after it very well. But that, I think, for me, was a kind of resurrection, a back from the life, a back from death.
Yeah, definitely.
So no, Rob, have you got a resurrection story?
Mike.
Helps if you have a mic, doesn't it? So yeah, well, I was thinking a good number of years ago now, the local primary school in our community was the worst school in the whole of the borough, and for results and all that kind of stuff. And the governing body had left, and the head teacher had left, and all this kind of stuff. And so I was kind of approached and asked if I wanted to become a governor. And then a couple of days later, the chair of governors. And so it was just great to be, a team came together with a new head teacher and a new governing body. And over the next few years, we saw that school kind of go from being kind of a bit dead in the water, really, as a school nobody wanted to go to being a really thriving place where lots of people wanted to go to that school.
Fantastic.
No, those are
great story.
Those are three very different stories, aren't they?
Yeah.
And so if you've got a story about something you thought was dead that came back to life, some kind of resurrection story, then we'd love to hear about it, and particularly Rob would like to hear about it, because today you are the
online pastor.
That's the
I think
one.
that's my title, yeah.
Okay, and so Rob's really eager to hear any of your stories along these lines. Right now, we're going to have our song for the morning, and Jill, you're going to introduce that.
Yeah, I've actually chosen a pre-recorded song by Luke Hamlin. Luke comes and leads worship for us regularly, but he's had COVID and he was really hoping to be able to come today, but he's still testing positive and a bit frustrated. So I thought, let's have a little blast of Luke. And this is him and a friend of his singing a song called Lion of Judah, which really talks about who Jesus is. And that's where we're going when we're talking about resurrection, out of death into resurrection, the power of who Jesus is. So let's enjoy Luke leading us in Lion of Judah.
He's coming on the clouds, kings and kingdoms will bow down. Every chain will break as broken hearts declare his praise. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. And every knee will bow before him. Oh, oh, oh. Every knee will bow, yeah. So open up the gates, make way before the King of Kings. Oh, make way. Our God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. And every knee will bow before him. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Yeah. And who can stop the Lord Almighty? Oh, and who can stop the Lord Almighty? Yeah. And who can stop the Lord Almighty? Oh, yeah. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? We sing it out, yeah. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Oh, we declare it out, yeah. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Yeah. Who can stop the Lord? Yeah. Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before him, yeah. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, Lion and the Lamb, and every knee will bow before him. Yeah.
We had one from Adrian. Where he was talking about a church that he went to. The mixing desk died catastrophically, as he says, and the prayer team came and prayed for it, and it came back to life.
Brilliant.
Wow.
So yeah, it was great. And Nikki saying about how all her plants have died and need some resurrection probably as well.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah.
I was talking with Phil earlier on, who's heading up the media team down below, and he was pondering how it had seemed that the roadworks could safely be, put to rest, RIP, no more roadworks, but unfortunately there's some kind of coming back to life there. So there are going to be more roadworks in the near future, so you'll have to work around those. Gill, this is the moment where I'm going to ask you to give us 5 minutes on what's coming up and the message that you're going to bring. So this is the moment when your heart needs to release this sermon a little bit for us. So away you go.
Well, yeah. So we're talking about death. We're talking about things that seem dead. And we tend to think about, in our own lives, we think about death coming at the end, doesn't it? It's when we breathe our last is when we think of death. But actually, the reality of our lives is that we're faced with life and death all the time. Choices that give towards life and choices that can give towards death, or can invite in consequences that cause a dying. And so what I was really wanting to say is that there are things we face in our lives that feel like death. They feel like if we do the right thing, we're gonna just die doing it. It's gonna be too hard to do. It's too hard a choice. It's too hard a temptation to turn away from. It's too hard to give the help because it seems costly. It's too hard to feel as vulnerable as we maybe do feel when we reach out to others and don't know how they're going to respond, so we retreat. All those kind of things can feel like death. We feel like we're putting ourselves out there. We feel like we're taking a risk. We feel like we're losing something of ourselves. And what the resurrection says in that is that there is a power that isn't in us, that we don't have a power, of course. We don't have the power to withstand temptation. We don't have the power to give of ourselves when we're worried about the cost. We want to retreat and be safe. But actually, Ephesians says God works his power in us, and it's the same power as the power that brought Jesus back to life. So when I say, right, I am going to resist this temptation, or I am going to offer help when I'm frightened, I'm going to be subsumed by this issue, God sees me put my hand in his, and I am really saying to him, help me. I can't do this by myself. And he says, that's okay. Because I have got all the power. I've got what's needed. And as long as you reach out to me, for whatever your challenges, whatever your life-death decision is, the tiny ones and the big ones, God is ready to cooperate with us and give us power. And so what we find is that even that very beginning of the tough choice, even as we turn and it's like, oh no, I don't think I can do it, but you turn yourself and say, right, God, I want to make this choice. What happens is we get this amazing lift. The Holy Spirit comes like the wind beneath our wings and says, here's the power, here's the lift, here's what you need to keep on that turn, to get into the road that you know you should be on, make the right choice, make the life choice. So that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit later.
That's great. I really love this idea of the power that raised Christ from the dead works in us. And I was briefly reflecting on that this morning, and had a prompt to just WhatsApp you
Yeah.
to say, have a look at this verse, which
Yeah,
holds
Ephesians
that truth.
1:19.
Ephesians
Yeah.
1, yeah. And you came back to me and said that you had just typed that in to your
But it
sermon
blew me
notes.
away, Steve, because
Yeah.
I literally had finished typing the sentence.
Yeah.
I saw the phone blink. I looked at it, and it said, it was from you, Ephesians 1:19. I was like, no, that's the passage I've just
It's
read.
amazing when that
It was
happens, isn't it?
phenomenal.
And how
Yeah.
often that happens, actually.
yeah.
And then your sermon was gobbled up by your computer.
Yes. No, that was last night. No,
Yeah.
this morning I had redone it.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking that as you come to preach today, then there's what you've just been saying is put into practice, isn't it? That without your notes and
Yeah.
just really leaning into God and trusting that power to be made known. So it's a really very good example.
It is.
Yeah. Rob, any thoughts about that or anything from our online
It was quite quiet.
viewers? Okay.
Need to use the microphone, don't I? Yeah, quite quiet online, so do say hello if you want to. That'd be great to hear from you. But yeah, it does. I was thinking actually about our garden, and when we moved into our house, the garden was in a bit of a state. But at one time, it'd been a great garden. But Alona worked really hard, particularly to kind of bring it back to life. But it did require kind of a power, a lot of hard work, doesn't it? And that's just a garden. If we think about some of the bigger, more significant things in our lives that require a power, there isn't a power in us, is there, that can change some of the circumstances, the challenges that we face, the walls that seem to be in front of us. And so we do need to look for God to bring that power, to move what seems immovable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's that idea of looking beyond ourselves
Yeah.
for a power that's beyond us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In an age where we're often told that everything you need is inside.
Exactly.
But actually, the reality is that we need that which is beyond us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a free gift as well. It comes in abundance,
Yeah.
that power. It's not limited, and we don't have to plead for it. It's God freely gives it.
Yeah. So really, really exciting theme, and I'm looking forward to hearing more a little later on. And if you'd like to hear more later on, then you can. There's still time to get in your car, on your bike, or get on foot to come along to the building in Lower Road, Bookham Baptist Church, where around 5:30 we'll be gathering for our morning service, and as part of that, Gill will be bringing her sermon and developing this theme. And you can see that resurrection happening as Gill opens her heart and speaks what God has given her. That's all then for today. Bless you. We'll be doing this again next week at another start of a 10, and we'd love you to join us. And also for any of the services, any of the times we get together on a Sunday or during the week. Bless you. Bye-bye.